Welcome to The Bridge. Fun conversations on culture, life, and everything in between.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to The Bridge. We are a show that connects East and West. My name is Jason, and welcome to The Bridge. I am in beautiful Wuhan, China. I am originally from California in the U.S., and today I am with Bebe and Morris. Find us where you get your podcasts. If you like the show, then consider pushing the like button or giving us 5 stars. Suggestions, comments, anything you would like to share, email us at welovethebridge@gmail.com. We love the bridge. Bebe, you know, Morris is a new friend of the show, originally from Hong Kong, now living in Beijing, who's lived all over the world, will be joining us today. Morris has a long and prestigious background as an international businessman, and will be helping shed light on the intricacies of Chinese fine dining and drinking in a formal setting.
Hi, Jason. Hi, Morris.
Hello, Bebe.
And this is Bebe from Beijing. Where are you, Morris?
I'm actually in Beijing.
Really? And what's the accent? Is it British accent?
Well, I did spend a lot of time in the UK, but I've been back in the region for so long, and I've been working mainly for North American companies. So my accent is probably now mid-Atlantic.
Still sound pretty classy.
You're making me blush.
Yeah.
Our topic today is actually drinking and dining etiquette. I created this topic as an American because I noticed one of the first things I noticed coming to China was how things are different. Like if I'm in America and I'm cheering with my friend, we just clink glasses. Clink. But in China, it's much more complicated. So like if I'm older, or if I make more money, or if I have a very respectable job versus the person in my peer group, suddenly I cheer at a higher point. Or if conversely, if I'm younger, or if I'm cheering with my uncle or father or something, I cheer at a lower point. So the where the glasses meet each other is differentiated by like a hierarchy of like social status and age in China. And that's not something that exists in America, but I've been to plenty of dining where people do this in China. And so things like this, I was hoping to elaborate more for our Western audience, because I think a lot of them would be interested in, how, social etiquette might be a little bit different in these kinds of situations.
How you clink glasses? Morris, you must know more about this. Yeah, I don't drink, so.
Jason brought up a very good point there, because if you had a formal banquet with customers, or you're meeting somebody important and so on, you do have to pay a little bit of attention to that. But I think culture and social behavior changes very quickly in China. So it's not a big deal if you clink your glass lower than some guy who is obviously has a higher status.
Right.
Yeah, they, especially as a foreigner, they wouldn't take offense.
Exactly.
A lot of my experience, I think you're right, absolutely. I've had people tell me that too. But a lot of my experience has been based around going out with my wife's uncle. And oftentimes, there are some, people there that are of, different status that actually matter. They're not just like your coworkers or whatever. And so in those situations, I notice them, they're like, how old are you? And I'm like, why? And so they're literally asking, where should I clink my glass? And so...
I see. And Jason's like, what are you talking about?
Yeah, actually, from my own experience, the more important, the higher status a person has, he probably, care less about this sort of thing, the higher their status. But you're right. I mean, if you are in a business environment, it's always good to understand some of the basics, so that you at least show respect.
Right.
It's very rare that people will take offense because
you didn't clink your glasses right,
or other dinner etiquette. Sometimes right, their colleagues or their subordinates will be very helpful and remind you.
Let me give you another example of what I'm talking about. In America, you pour for yourself. In China, I notice people will oftentimes pour tea or alcohol for each other.
Right.
So whoever's sitting next to you, if your glass starts to get a little empty, they will fill it back up for you.
Yes.
Yeah, that's a cultural thing. Yeah, it happens.
That's
everywhere.
so common that we don't really notice this anymore. Let's say if I go somewhere with my younger cousin, then to someone's house or someone comes over, then I naturally assume the responsibility of taking care of the guests. At least most of it. I would be the one to initiate, bringing out the dishes, making sure they have tea. But if I'm the younger person, if I go with my older cousin, then she is supposed to take on that role. This is not like up for discussion. Like it's just something that happens naturally. And I think that not just for dining, but for pretty much everything else. There is a age hierarchy.
Oh, yeah. Even casual dining in the south of China and in Hong Kong. Yeah. When we go for dim sum. Yeah. That's actually a good hint for our Western friends. If you're going out to lunch with a group of your friends and they keep pouring you tea and you've actually drank enough, just leave it, right? As long as your cup is full, they won't refill it. But if you think I'm being polite, they pour me a cup of tea, I've got to drink it.
It just keeps
then
going.
As soon as you empty, it just keeps coming. Yeah. So stop drinking if you've had enough tea.
Something else I want to mention, that the best etiquette at a Chinese dinner, especially like in someone's house, the best etiquette is just to enjoy your food. That's like if you enjoy your food, like they can see that you're happy, that you like the food. That's the best compliment. And the other things are just so minor; it doesn't really matter anymore.
But from an American perspective, this is a little bit unusual. Let me give you another example. So far, all of the examples, I think people in the West would be like, "Oh yeah, that's cute. That's I like that," or whatever. Another one for some people might be concerning is people put food on your plate. So this is in America, you order your food typically. And that's your plate.
Right.
And now it's like, the holy ground of this one person and you eat it. In China, I notice, not only do people put food on the plate, but sometimes people eat food off of your plate. And like
it's
if
not
you
your
buy
plate.
a dish, exactly. If you buy a dish in America, that's like, okay, I wanted tamales or whatever. That's my dish of tamales. Whereas in China, it's like, great, you ordered tamales. This is going to be great for everybody. And then they just automatically share, which is really great. I've gotten used to it. But I know that a lot of people might not adjust as well as others to this like sharing culture. You have this, what is it called? A lazy Susan, the giant glass spinning vehicle for food, and everyone shares. So everyone has a little bit of everything, which is healthy and social. And, I think it's very cute. But for some people, like coming from the United States, that might be, like, why did he touch my food?
Well, that's the topic I was going to bring up. And it's great that you brought that up. I think for our Western audience, you have to understand something that's fundamentally different about how a Chinese meal is organized from a Western meal. Because in the West, right, you have your own plate. Right, food is prepared, and then you take whatever food onto your own plate before consuming it. In China, it's not quite like that, right? So you each have your own bowl of rice, and if soup is being served, you have your own bowl of soup. But the rest of the food is actually communal, right? It's all on plates served in the middle of the dinner table, and everybody takes whatever they like or they want, they need from this communal plates of food. So if you're going out to a restaurant, like a casual lunch with a colleague, and you sit down and you decide to order different plates, it's actually not unusual for you to share your food.
I was saying we don't really think of as sharing my dish. Like there's no such thought. Let's say if I order a plate of tomatoes and eggs, that's, I order because I like it, but I'm also ordering for everybody else.
That's right.
There's there's no such thought from the very beginning of this is my dish. But Jason, no one will take your rice or the bowl of soup.
That's right.
That's given that's yours.
That's
Everything else is up for share. Yep. And I don't know if you guys have ever come across this video It was like one of the it went viral a few years ago when it first came out. I think it must have been like a tourist group, like of all foreigners. Maybe it's a tourist group with the Chinese tour guide, a lady. So they're at this dinner, and someone shot this video of every foreigner has this whole plate in front of him or herself. Like this foreigner would have an entire fish, like laying on the plate in front of him, and this person awkwardly trying to use chopsticks, and another person would have like a whole chicken in front of him, and then like 8 or 10 of these. Another person a plate of like spicy tofu or something, and then the video that the camera rolls, and finally to this Chinese lady, like stuck with some like poor plate of vegetables with the saddest look on her face.
Yeah, she probably ordered last because she realized that other people have ordered chicken and fish, so she better order some vegetables.
I know. Right, all the good dishes have been taken, and then she's stuck with this one plate, and the looks in her eyes, she was like, she couldn't say anything.
Was this a TikTok video?
Yeah, it was a real thing. I think someone just at the dinner thought it was really funny and
this is
shot
exactly what I was referring to, because, you know, a Chinese meal is structured very differently from a Western meal. Yeah.
And also, I want to mention something. As Morris mentioned, social changes. Like years ago, when we had these family dinners, like everybody would just take whatever they want with their own chopsticks. But now in recent years, some very good and sanitary change development is that we've started using communal chopsticks and spoons to get food from these communal dishes. So no one actually, like no saliva changes.
Yeah, but that's the theory, baby. You know, after 3 rounds of drink, everybody forgets. Yeah, sometimes if you go, if you go to a nice restaurant, they will actually prepare 2 pairs of chopsticks for every place setting. Usually a white or ivory colored pair and a black pair, so that you can tell the difference. And it's up to you which pair you want to use to feed yourself. Yeah, the pair that goes into your mouth, and the other pair you're supposed to use to get food from the communal dish. But from experience, after 3 rounds of drinks, everybody forgets that nobody really minds anymore. But yeah, that's a thing. Yeah.
Okay, but I think in general, it's a good direction, right? It's a good development. It's better for everybody, especially you know the pandemic time. So that's something that, you know, you don't have to worry as much as before.
Finish going for a bicycle ride around the town, so that'll be something I'm looking forward to.
Nice. And maybe get some good food.
Possibly. I'm trying to cut back though, you know. I've had a lot of good food lately.
Cutting back on good food in Wuhan is difficult.
Yeah.
It has so much to offer, right? From snacks to like noodles and just things you don't know the name of, and to nice restaurants. There's just so many choices.
You're absolutely right. Yeah.
Okay, anyhow, I'm going to hold back.
Yeah, rogamian has been a particularly challenge not ordering it as often as I would like to.
Oh, really? One of my favorite as well.
Yeah, it's delicious. Hot, dry noodles for those in the States, but it's really, really good. It has like a peanut buttery kind of flavor. It's not exactly peanut butter, but it's
sesame, Jason.
It's sesame? I don't know.
Listen, that's the essence of rogamian. That's the spiritual essence of rugamian.
I actually asked my boss, who is a Wuhan person, hey, what's the best like rugamian place in the city to go to? And she's like, oh, let me get back to you. And then like a week later, she gave me a printed list of about 30 places to go to.
All right.
So I guess the work I have to do the work myself. So, someone's got to do it.
I grew up in Wuhan, so I can say a little bit about it. I mean, we treat it as a breakfast item. No, I mean, like, who eats noodles for breakfast, right? It turned out that there are a lot of people in China who eat noodles for breakfast, like people in Wuhan and also people in, let's say, Lanzhou, and they have lamian, like noodle lamian for breakfast. You can also have them in just, regular restaurants, not like these greasy spoons, but they are never as good as the ones that are on the sides of the, street where people just go you pay like less than $1 for a bowl.
I see those lines where it's like the shop is built into the side of the building, but it's like you line up on the outside of the street. There are a ton of those here.
Those are good.
Actually, Bebe, to your point, I grew up in Hong Kong, and if you go to Hong Kong now, the staple diet for breakfast, a lot of people have instant noodles in little street side cafes. So actually, noodles are quite popular as a breakfast dish, even in Hong Kong.
Right. I mean, I've been to Hong Kong twice, and one of the things you got to do is go to these restaurants, and these tiny little restaurants. And the noodles there are so like stringy, so hard,
Yes, it's made very differently. When they are actually doing the dough for the noodle, they add in some kind of alkaline substance.
So right.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
It's more chewy.
Yeah. It's not only harder; it gives it a particular flavor and a texture.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, it actually has a flavor to it.
And the soup and the soup base is usually really good.
Yeah.
It's not just the noodles. You gotta savor the soup too. I think I'm getting carried away a bit.
You're reminding me of one of my trips to Hong Kong. My wife and I were staying in a really small hotel, and there was a place just like you guys are describing.
Okay.
And it was kind of like a really small Denny's, for those our American listeners. But and they had pancakes and they had eggs and they had all the stuff that like an American diner would have. But they also had, and this is what I really liked, they had like ramen noodles, like, in a bowl with sausages and stuff in them, and like they put eggs on top, and I was like, whoa, well, this is very interesting. I have to try this. And then after I tried it, we ate there every morning until we left. And then when I think of Hong Kong, what did I like about Hong Kong? I think about this place.
Wow. Must be really good.
Yeah, that was exactly what I was talking about. The ramen is actually instant noodle. It came out of a packet, but then they prepare it properly, so that it's not soggy, and then they add their own magic sauce to it, and top it up with a fried egg or sausages and so on.
You mentioned when it comes to noodles, timing is crucial. It's like cereal. My dad, he's a noodle person. He's from northern part of China, and they like he needs noodles every day. Can't go to sleep without a bowl of noodles.
Right.
And he's not a picky eater at all. But what's most important to him is the texture of the noodles. So if you leave it in it for too long, it's like it ruins his day. I mean, he has like the best temperament. He never gets mad, but you can see how sad he gets when his noodle gets soggy.
Yeah.
It's like the whole day is ruined. So
I totally understand that sentiment, because with noodles, that's why Chinese noodles is not a great food to socialize over, because it should be eaten quickly and you shouldn't be distracted. Yeah, seriously, because it will get soggy if you leave it in the bowl.
Of rugamian, because it's not in water. It's already dry. Yeah. You can maybe socialize. Go Wuhan. let's pivot to another topic a little bit. There's so many of these to talk about that are these differences culturally. So another thing is whether it's fine dining or like dining at home with your family, there's usually only one seat that matters in the West, and that's the head. And usually that goes to like the oldest person, and then all the other seats, they don't matter at all. But in China, I've noticed you have like a very large circular table. Usually, especially at banquet, I'm not talking about just like going to a restaurant. Most people go to a restaurant, they just sit. But I'm talking about like, you know, big banquet table. The head will sit with the furthest from the entrance, furthest from the door.
Right.
And then proceeding down the table on either side, left and right, will be the most or the oldest people or the most important people at the banquet until you get down to the people who are sitting closest to the door on the other side, who are typically like the youngest people or... Right. So this is something that's a little bit different, and it's very interesting. I'm not complaining at all. I think it's very interesting. You can look up the table. Okay, these are our elders. You know, they're sitting on that side. We're showing respect to them by them sitting in such a way. I think it's nice. It's romantic in a kind of way, but it's very different from the West.
I can talk a little bit about that because in my professional life, I'm a salesperson, so I meet customers all the time. Yeah, what Jason just described, it's more important in these formal settings. If you're just going out with friends and family, then it doesn't really matter. It's a round table. But I think Jason hit most of the major points already, right? When you are entertaining customers or in a formal event, you try to get a table that is furthest away from the entrance. Yeah, and you allow the either the host or the most honored guest to take the top place in a circular table. It sounds a bit strange, but if you've been to such a formal banquet, a competent restaurant will actually lay out the table so that it's obvious which one is the head seat, because they usually fold the napkin in a particular way, in a different way from all the others, so that you know that one. Yeah. So the way that I was taught is that unless you're entertaining someone who is obviously has a higher status than yourself. Yeah, if you're representing a company or something and you're the host, you yourself normally take the head seat, right? And then your most honored guest would be on your right, and the second honored guest would be on your left. And in an ideal situation where there's a similar number of people from your organization to their organization, you would have alternate people. Right. So that, there's interaction going on, because you have, if you put two customers together, then, they're talking amongst themselves. If you put one person from your organization in between, right opposite the host, that person has a particular job. He's basically your assistant, right? So if you need anything, the most important bit is at the end of the dinner. Right, because you if you're the host and you're sitting at the head position, you're furthest away from anything, right? You're furthest away from the waiters and so on. You signal him, and he will go and pay the bill.
Right.
Yeah.
What does this look like, Bebe?
You just look at that person, and he'll know. It's time.
Well, I would say that if you have a very competent assistant, right? Then
he will watch
you don't
out
even
for
need
your
to
looks.
look. He can judge. Well, it's about it's either time, right? It's lunch. It's about time they got back to work, or if it's dinner, everybody's had enough to drink. Yeah, he will go and do that.
Maybe for really competent assistant, he will know exactly when to go, and they will be in perfect harmony, right, with his boss. And then if not as competent, the assistant might look at the boss, like maybe lift the end of his eye a little bit. Is it time? Kind of asking. And then the boss might nod a little bit, and then it's time. And then with like someone new, the boss might have to look at him to signal, right? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then for someone really new to the job, the boss might have to do something else, like a hard look. Don't you get it?
We're on another topic that I wanted to talk about, and that is paying for the bill. So like maybe not in this circumstance because you're talking about a business hosting for another business, but maybe you and your friends go out or 3 sets of couples go out or whatever. Then there's a process in China where, well, let me talk about the US first.
You fight.
Yes, let's get to that second. In the US, it might be like, okay, there's 3 couples. We're each going to pay for what we ordered. Or you do what they call like Dutch treat, where every person actually individually pays, or you'll divide the bill 6 ways and each person will pay 1/6 of the bill. But in China,
well,
how does
you
it
never
work,
get
guys?
separate bills. You will pay the other person back, right? So yeah, even though even in a situation where you're amongst peers and good friends, and you pay for yourself, you will never ask the waiter for separate bills. That's very, very unusual and could be perceived as being rude. Yeah.
But you guys do fight for the bill. I've seen this like activity where it's like, no, I'm paying.
Right.
Oh, no,
You
I'm
think
paying.
they're fighting. They're actually just
That's
fighting
a
for the
situation
bill.
when somebody is actually paying for the meal. Yeah. But if there's an understanding that you each pay for your own meal, even then somebody will settle the bill first and then you pay him back afterwards. Yeah, it's very, very strange in China to ask the waiter for separate bills. They probably, I'm not even sure.
The waiter will be like, they really don't get along.
Well, I'm not even sure if the POS system is set up to be able to do that, because the bills are according
anyhow.
to table. Yeah.
Right. And also, it usually works like this, like with your coworker or your friends. If I treat you this time, usually the next time the other person would know that it's his turn. And then there might be a little bit of, put on struggle to fight over the bill, but both know that it's the other person's turn.
Yeah.
Unless he did you a favor and you were asking him out. So I think in China, you need to be careful when you ask people out. Like when you ask people out, when you invite somebody to dinner, that means you are paying for this.
Yeah.
If you don't have that ready, don't ask anybody out. You know what I mean?
I think, in the West, you differentiate through the way you request their company. So if I were to say, hey, me and my wife, we're going out to dinner. Would your wife and be interested in maybe joining us? That might be we're paying for ourselves. But if I say, I would like you and your wife to come out with my wife and I to go to like such and such place on Friday night, that would indicate I'm formally inviting you and I'm probably going to be the one paying. So it's very like the wording on how you like structure your grammar indicate who's paying.
Right. But in China, you still need to be careful. Like if I invite you and your wife out for dinner, I would assume that I'm paying for this. I wouldn't expect you to share the bill. Otherwise, I just go with my, my family. I wouldn't invite you. If I invite you, I'm ready to pay for the meal. So it would be odd. Let's say if you invite me, and then at the end of the meal, like we have to split the bill. In China, that's kind of like,
Yeah. In fact, our language, it's structured that way, right? Yeah. When you say 请吃饭, it both means an invitation to dinner as well as it means I'm buying you dinner, right? Yeah, so you do have to be a little bit careful. But again, like Bebe was saying earlier, if you're a foreigner in China, people won't take offense.
No, I don't.
Right.
I don't want to actually be disagreeable because I agree, based on my experience, that if I have my own soup, that it's my own soup. But there is an exception to that, and I think a lot of expats and Chinese people take for granted how few American people really know about what is hot pot. So this is an instance in which we kind of share a soupy-like substance.
I think by now, especially in the US, most people would have had some idea what a hot pot is. I would imagine.
I think maybe, but I can think of my own family have never been to hot pot. None of them. None of my members of my core family, all 5 of them, have never been to a hot pot scenario. So they wouldn't really know. Maybe they've just seen it. So I thought we could go over how this works. So I actually just went to Haidilao 2 or 3 days ago, but actually I prefer shabu shabu. But like there's all these, they're all kinds of smaller, mom and pop kind of places too. So there's lots of places people go, and it's a very common like dining scenario for people to sit around, a communally very hot, boiling, flavored tub or bowl, a pot of water that is like has different like seasonings in it. And then you order food that goes inside. So you order like strips of beef and you order vegetables, mushrooms, and other things to put inside. And then everyone takes them and they have this tiny small bowl that is filled with, is this sesame sauce?
That is sesame sauce.
I have to point out one thing, Jason. Yeah, there are actually many different types of hot pot in China. Yeah, so what you just described is more along the lines of what's popular in southwestern China, the Sichuan Chongqing hot pot, where the soup base is usually very spicy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but for example, the real local hot pot in Beijing, the soup base basically tastes of nothing. It
can be clear.
Water with it's usually clear. They have a couple of slices of ginger, spring onions, and that's it, because you want to taste the meat. Right. Yeah. So and that's usually done over a coal-fired. I don't know what
Copper
the proper name
pot?
for it, but a copper pot with a chimney up the middle.
I've seen that in movies.
Yeah.
But I've actually not had that.
And just to sidetrack a little bit, you learn physics by having a meal like that, because seriously, because what happens if the heat is getting a bit low? They get a longer chimney out and stick it on top. A longer chimney will fan the flame, right? So they have this copper longer chimney. If your pot is not hot enough, a waiter would come out with a taller chimney, stick it on top of the chimney, and the flame will suddenly become much stronger. Yeah. That's physics, right? but that's sidetracking.
Well, I never thought about it that way.
But where I grew up in Hong Kong, again, hot pot is done in multiple different ways. There's sometimes with flavored soup base, and sometimes with just water. Yeah, because you really want to taste the meat. I've been told that the Sichuan hot pot is made this way because it was the food of the lower class, the laborers, the poor people, and they didn't have access to fresh meat, and a lot of times they actually eat the internal organs, the offal, right? And there's a certain slightly unpleasant odor depending on your taste. So the spice actually covers a lot of that up.
Right. And also because where they live, and also where they live, like Sichuan mountainous areas, it's very humid. So they're used to eating spicy food to drive out the dampness in their internal dampness. So they will eat this even in the summer because it's so humid. They need a heat to force the internal dampness out. Basically by sweating. So they're so used to that. That's another topic.
That's a concept in Chinese medicine. You want to force out, but I think in more practical terms that a Western audience would understand it. In a really hot and humid environment, you lose your appetite. If you have spicy food, it helps you. It increases your appetite. Food tastes better. You taste it.
Think of Indian food. Right? And also just on the hot pot. Nowadays, if you go order, usually you get to pick the soup base. So you can pick clear. And as Morris said, there'll be a few slices of ginger and spring onion. And then you can pick mushroom. So there'll be a little bit of dried mushroom.
That's the one I usually choose, is the mushroom.
It's very light. It doesn't really have much of other taste. And then some point in history, they started this tomato soup base. And you get this in Haidilao. So you basically have a pot of tomato soup. And in which you dip in the other things. And then there are the spicy and the crazy spicy, depending on your tolerance for
individual
spiciness.
bowl. We didn't quite finish. There's sesame paste that looks like, I'm sorry to say because I'm American, it looks like peanut butter.
Don't say it.
It does. Anyways,
okay.
It looks like peanut butter. And
it tastes like peanut butter.
Then you have a salad bar kind of area where you can add all hot peppers or like little bits of green onion or like coriander, all these different things. So
there are like 18 other choices.
Yeah, that's Chinese fusion for you, because the what you describe as like peanut butter, again, that's sesame paste. Right, so you ground out sesame, and sesame is very oily, so that there's some oil just naturally comes out when you grind sesame, right? But that is basically the traditional sauce for a Beijing hot pot,
right?
The 涮羊肉. Yeah, and it's set up that way because there are other spices, right? There's finely chopped up chive and spring onions and garlic and sesame oil, and sometimes if you prefer spices, even chili oil and stuff like that. I understand. I'm no expert on this, but I understand that the traditional sauce for a proper Sichuan or Chongqing hot pot is actually just sesame oil with some garlic, some minced garlic at the bottom of it. I've been told the theory is that if the hot pot soup base is really, really spicy, right? You want to be able to enjoy the spice, but if it's too spicy, as soon as you put it in your mouth, you don't have time to enjoy it. So you coat it with a very thin coat of sesame oil. That's why you dip it in sesame oil before you put it in your mouth. That's the way it was explained.
And it tastes good.
Oh yeah, it tastes good.
Some people think that if you eat something spicy, you water it down and that will help. Actually, you need something oily, because something like the things in the spicy chili peppers, they bond with oily stuff. They don't bond with water. So if you drink, like some people drink yogurt, if they get, accidentally.
Yeah, that's what they bring you really at Haidi Lao. When you order the really spicy one, they bring out little pouches of yogurt. They're like, here, you're going to need
help
this.
You. Yeah, to like comfort your tongue. So like water doesn't really do it. Like for that instant, you will feel better because it's colder. But actually something oily will actually carry that away. Yeah.
Interesting.
And also, I just want to say something about peanut butter and sesame paste. You don't see peanut butter as much. I mean, we have it.
No, not really. Yeah. It's in the store.
There are these peanut butter and sesame mixture kind of paste. But when we see it, like when Chinese people see it, we think of it as fake sesame paste. Like they substituted peanut butter in their sesame paste. It's like adding water to your wine, Sesame paste has a stronger flavor to it, and it's very, very popular in many different ways. Yeah, and
but the great thing about hot pot is doesn't matter which part of China, what type of hot pot, the very nature of it means that the hot pot dinner is always social. Yeah, in fact, from my own experience, if you're having a hot pot dinner, you spend probably half the dinner standing up on your feet. We joke that it goes down better, right? But but a hot pot dinner is always social. Yeah.
And can I ask something? Now we're on to the social aspect of it. I want to ask Jason and also Morris. So when it comes to drinking, there are two things that I think are different between Chinese and Western culture. First of all, in China, you don't really drink alone unless, like, if you see someone drinking alone, that's like, oh gosh, what happened?
Yeah, sad,
like, it's either like a divorce. It's like either a divorce or like bankruptcy. It's on that scale.
Well, let's say sad. Especially,
sad. Okay, it doesn't happen often. And also drinking without like a meal, drinking without food, and peanuts like nuts doesn't count. Okay, so because my understanding is in the West, if you go to a bar, you order your drink and then they'll give you some side dish, right? A little something, but no like a plate of pasta. That's not bar food. But in China, it's like you drink with food.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Am I right, Morris? Like you don't really just like drink for like these two things are For me, for us,
You're
it's hard
mostly
to
right,
understand.
because in our culture, right, obviously nowadays, yeah, I think even in the West, right, if you're drinking alone, that conveys a kind of sadness, right? And in China, particularly so. And you're also right, yeah, nowadays we usually drink with food. If you cast your mind back to the old days, right, hundreds of years ago, these poets, right, all they need is a clear
Poets.
moonlit night, and they will drink alone and come up with this nice poem. Yeah, so that doesn't happen anymore. At least not in my social circle. Right.
That's why they are the poets. That they're the weird ones.
Yeah. I mean, in America, you do have context where it's not just sad. Like, people go to like a sports bar, and they sit alone to watch a sports game. Maybe they're with their friends, maybe they're not. So they might just be having a beer or two. Or a lot of people in their own home will just oftentimes the cliche is a man will just sit on his couch and have a beer or two and watch television, presumably the game, whatever that is.
Oh, that's different. That's at home.
Yeah, yeah.
And also, the other thing is drinking with people you don't know. That's something hard for my family to understand. We don't really get the bar culture. We get drinking with people you know, because, Chinese people, they drink at banquets with your friends and family, people you know, or people they bring the people they know. But it's never like, oh, let's go to a party. There are a bunch of people we don't know, so let's go there and drink with them. That's absolutely odd.
Yeah, totally
You know what
agree.
I mean, Lars?
I don't know if
Totally
that's entirely
agree.
true in China, guys. I have to disagree.
Really?
The younger Chinese generations
there's a different generation.
They do go to the bar and they do try to meet people that they don't already know, because I've been on the other side of that. I've been the expat in the drinking establishment, and they're like, a group of Chinese people are like, they'll literally say things like, "Can we come drink with you?" Because it's a different language, I guess. And so, it's like, yeah, sure, why not? And so then suddenly there's a big group of expats and Chinese people who just met each other hanging out. I think it's like a kind of a younger generational kind of thing.
Yeah, no, I think it's more to do with you being an expat, right? They probably want to learn English,
practice their English,
and learn about your way of life.
Learning about other culture.
Yeah. But
But they wouldn't do that with Chinese
I would
people.
say very rarely. Yeah,
You know what I mean?
Yeah. But in my professional life, you actually turn that around, right? So you ask customers to go out drinking with you. You've only known them for 2 days, to try to get to know them, to build rapport, right?
Well, that's called
work drinking. That sounds so hard. Oh,
You get paid to do that, but in your daily life.
Before we leave the subject of drinking with food, I have a very interesting story to tell, which my dad told me when I was young.
Sure.
Yeah, because my dad grew up in a different age, right? He's from the Shandong province, right? And there was a period of time when people in his hometown, areas around his hometown, were very poor. So he actually told me this story when he was very young. He's seen it himself, right? Where you go into these small roadside restaurants, and there's a poor laborer. Yeah, he can't really afford to have a lavish meal, so he probably just had a bowl of rice or whatever. And in Shandong, it's more likely to be a mantou, right? Steamed bread. And then he would order himself some, Chinese rice wine, but he doesn't have any food to go with it. And apparently, it was a done thing that you see a neighboring table, they've ordered some relatively nice food, and you ask to borrow their food. And what then happens is they will allow you to take one of their dish, whatever meat dish or whatever, put it in front of you, and you drink to it, right? You don't actually,
Really?
My dad told me this was a done thing. So actually, poor people will actually borrow a dish from a neighboring table so that they can pretend that they have food to go along with their alcohol.
Wow.
That's
kind of sad.
Yeah.
That is like back, I remember when I was a kid, and there are times when your neighbors would have more delicious dinner than you do, right? Back in the days, because I remember when I was little, people lived closer together, like apartment buildings. So you can smell your neighbor's dinner. And sometimes what they were cooking would be much better than what you had that night. And you would, with your bowl of rice, and imagine that you're eating whatever they were eating. But
Oh.
yeah, but it wasn't because, we didn't have anything. It's just on certain days they have something better. And other days we have something better.
Yeah.
But that's a sad story.
Well, you have to remember, my dad is in his late 80s, so that was a long time ago. He saw that when he was young.
Right. Now everybody's concerned with eating too much or too much nutrients.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
I kind of wanted to talk about a little bit about fine dining. So we've been talking about banquet dining, which can be like equated with fine dining. In the West, I remember being a kid, I looked at a map of Sacramento, which was not too far from where I was living at the time. And on the map, there was a place that was like a huge place that was like for going to learn how to do fine dining. And I was like, well, this is peculiar. Like this like university for fine dining exists where you send like apparently your kids to go learn how to have etiquette, which fork and which spoon to use. And you guys were talking about the chopsticks that are provided for using for the table and for using yourself and like cheering with each other and like filling each other's tea and baijiu and things. You know, it seems to me based on my experience in the United States and in China that because of all of the peculiarities of the rules and the hoity-toity kind of like way that really it means like a very fine dining style kind of like way of eating in certain circumstances. It kind of takes the joy out of being together. Whereas in China, when you're sitting around the big table, like you do have these rules, you can break these rules. People kind of don't care as long as you're being nice and, a nice person. And it's about let's have a good time. Let's be jovial together. And so there's a huge difference even in like the highest kind of fine dining in China versus that in the West, which is borrowed from Europe. It's like people in China really just want to, okay, we're going to get together and we're going to create a moment together of happiness where everyone remembers that we were all smiling and laughing at the same time. And I think that's a huge kind of like there can be a difference there. Obviously, in the middle class, I think it's more or less the same. People getting together, having a good time in the US and China. But like it does seem like all of these weird rules in the really fine dining in the West kind of suck the joy out of these kind of events. Hoity-toity.
Hoity-toity. That's like Titanic scene.
Let's substitute that with one word. Pretentious.
Yeah, pretentious.
Wait, that reminds me of the Titanic scene. Remember when Jack went to eat with Rose and, he was learning on the spot, like what fork to use. But then, I think everybody knows. Everybody knows that everybody else is just pretending.
But I think there's another aspect, right? If you're really talking about fine dining, really formal environment and really expensive meal and so on, there's actually less chance of you making a mistake in terms of so-called dinner etiquette because you would have everything served onto your plate by a waiter, right? You wouldn't need to reach out and grab food from the communal plate. The waiter would actually prepare portions onto your plate and then serve it up to you. So there's much less of an opportunity for you to make a mistake. Since this chat is supposed to be about dining etiquette, I just want to touch on some basics, right? What I went over earlier was about formal, like a business environment, your most important guest sitting to your right and so on. Yeah. And if he's important enough, you would concede your host seat to him, right? And you sit on his right. Yeah. But at home, a lot of so-called Chinese dinner etiquette comes from the home, right? You have to observe that. Again, it's second nature, right? For example, right? You never pick and choose, right? Say if it's a dish of, shredded chicken and celery, if you like chicken and you don't like celery, it's very rude for you to use your chopsticks and pick and choose, scrape away the celery and only pick the chicken out of it. Yeah, that is extremely rude.
Huh, I didn't know that. Ooh, I've been doing that wrong for years. Thank you, Morris.
Because when I was growing up, my grandma, who passed away like 20 years ago, he had this, I still remember to this day, he had this big jade ring on his finger. If I did that jade ring would come down on the back of my head and I'll have a little bump. Yeah. So
Goodness me.
So a lot of the Chinese dinner etiquette actually, there's no separate etiquette for so-called fine dining. It's observed at home, right?
Yeah, that reminds me. Another thing that's important, though it's second nature, so we don't really think about it, is that supposedly you don't start eating until the oldest person in the family has started eating. Like when,
or they indicate you may. I've seen that at a banquet table. Like they weren't going to start, but they were like, "You guys start." Yeah.
and Jason will be like, "I don't need your permission."
I already started. The duck's gone, guys.
Right. So I thought of this because, when I take my daughter back to his grandparents, like his dad's side, and at family dinners, if you don't tell the kids, they wouldn't know. They'll just start eating. But, year after year, I still have to remind her that wait until grandma and grandpa, they picked up their chopsticks and they pick something. And a lot of times they do that just so that the kids can start eating. They will always say that, "Oh, please start. But we will ask our kids to wait until they actually picked up their chopsticks, pick something, whatever it is. And then that means the meal can start now. But, it's so common that we don't really think about this.
That's
we
interesting.
feel like we don't have any etiquette, but actually we do, huh, Morris?
Yeah. There's actually a lot of etiquette that's sort of drummed into you from a very young age. So it becomes second nature. You don't even think of it as being etiquette, right?
Right. And also with these lazy Susans, whenever there's a new dish that comes in, you kind of put on the table and swing it to the oldest person or your honored guest. Right. Pick something first, and then it goes around. You're usually the last one. See, another reason why with seating, usually, the important person is far away from the entrance. And there is someone closest to the entrance. And that person is supposed to help take care of things. Like
pay the bill.
When the waiter or waitress brings in a new dish. Yeah, things like that. Yeah. So there's usually a young person or, middle-aged who takes the responsibility.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, but
Jason's like, what have I done wrong?
I thought when I began this, because I've already written 2 different blogs on this in the past, I thought, I've got this down, but I've learned so much from you two that I'm going to have to write a new one.
Taking it a step further, what I was saying about picking and choosing only stuff that you like from a dish. Yeah. When I was growing up in my family, it would be rude if you have when the dish is being served first, so it's pretty full, it would be rude even for you to stand up and go to the back side of the dish and grab something. You should just grab whatever is facing you, right?
Oh, right.
And you definitely don't pick and choose.
Right. And the worst thing you can do is mix the dish with your chopsticks or with the communal chopsticks. Kind of some people have that habit. And also, now that you mentioned this, Jason, because your wife is Chinese and you go to her hometown, I suppose, once in a while. And one thing important about Chinese culture is who we consider to be Chinese. It's not just your nationality. And actually, nationality is not the most important thing. Let's say you've been here for 20 years. You've learned all these details. You've felt it and you've integrated them into your own culture. And someday they will start considering you as a Chinese person.
Woohoo!
If you know, seriously, if you know all the things, the things we talked about, Morris and I talked about as second nature today, one day they will become second nature to you. And by that time, your nationality, where your passport is from, doesn't matter anymore. The Chinese people will consider you Chinese because you've adapted, you've learned the culture. I think in our hearts, that's how we judge if someone is Chinese, not by nationality. Yeah, so Chinese is a cultural thing.
Thank you both for that. We are so out of time, though. I wish we could continue this conversation. Yeah.
Well, Morris, I want to say it's so nice chatting to you. It's so much fun. It just went by.
No, I enjoyed it so much that I didn't realize an hour is up already.
We'll do this again.
We'll talk to you guys next time.
Okay. Well, thank you, Morris. Thank you, Jason.
Okay.
Thank you, our listeners.
Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity to come and share.
Yeah, it's been so much fun. We'll see you guys.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.